Hello everybody, Mr. George Remus here, back with another build video. Today we're going to be looking at Ultimate Gley and Blood and Iron. She's been reworked twice, one of which was a nerf to her Blood and Iron build. You may have seen some stuff building around her 4 ability with this mod. We are going to use that, but we're actually going to use this build around her 3 ability. More of a melee kind of build focused around the sword shadow. It's a lot of fun, it's really strong, you're going to be getting fast clears. It's actually one of the more enjoyable builds I've ever used, and I'm just a super big fan, and I hope you guys are too. Before we get super deep into it, I think we should talk about what Blood and Iron actually does for Gley. If you don't know what this does, it kind of makes her like a melee-based descendant with some benefits to that going to her skills. For example, her passive gets changed for when a melee is equipped. You get some blood orbs from attacking enemies and dealing damage to them with a sword. Her 4 becomes like this little gunslinger, shoots everything in front of her, line of sight, destructive skill that everybody's like super big fan of. This is actually kind of what they nerfed, but it's still really good, and we're still going to build into it a little bit. The bread and butter that we're going to be building into here though is her 3 ability. This will work with her sword, and while you have a melee weapon equipped, you will do additional damage based off of your skill power. It's actually quite a bit. It's more substantial than I think people realize, and it's really good for bossing and ad clearing as well in some of these higher end dungeons. All right, to demonstrate what this looks like, you're going to want to activate your 1 ability, go frenzy mode, then you're going to activate your 3. This is going to take a constant drain on your HP. So what you do to combat that is you want to deal a lot of damage. You are generating blood orbs and kind of picking them up at the same time, so you'll notice that your HP recovers as you go and that you're getting some of your special resource. Once you have enough special resource, you can still activate your 4 to help clap up the room. Even in high-end dungeons, this is still enough to clear the room of ads and then go right back to dealing damage, refreshing your 3 as needed. Looking at the mods themselves, in my experience with this build, lots of hours testing it, playing with it, having a blast. You want to have about 20,000 HP to be consistently safe and staying alive during boss fights. We are going to run increased HP and HP amplification. We're going to get HP elsewhere, but we'll go over that when we get there. You do want some cooldowns, so we got nimble fingers, MP conversion, and then you want some duration, so we have skill extension. The purpose of this is for a 3 ability. You want the cooldown and the duration to overlap. I like a little bit of extra duration. That way you're not a fish out of water once the cooldown's up and you're trying to reactivate it. You get a little bit of breathing room there. For some skill damage, we are going to run focus on non-attribute and non-attribute integration. This is you get a little bit of critical hit damage. We don't care about that. We do care about the non-attribute skill power. You don't want to run amplification here because that reduces your crit damage. We are going to be using skill concentration for skill crit hit damage because we're going to put a little bit of effort into our 4, not a whole lot. That being said, focus on dimension is what I chose to run for a little bit of extra skill power into your 4. But you can run focus on singular if you want a little bit extra damage on your 3. It just wasn't a super large amount since it's modifier. So I ran dimension just for the heck of it, but you could put singular here instead. You may have noticed this empty spot. That's because you get a little bit of leeway here. If you want to put some skill range here to get the most out of your 4 ability, you can run skill expansion. There's nothing wrong with that. I personally felt like Spear and Shield was a really strong option for that fresh skill power and the defense modifier. We are going to be in the thick of the battle and tanking a lot of damage, so having some defense is also really nice. This is probably what I would run normally if I'm not running an ancestor mod, and naturally if you have an ancestor mod, you can swap that out there. Which ancestor mod should you be looking for with this build? That is an excellent question, and honestly I don't have a perfect answer. There doesn't really seem to be much here that you can build into except for crit damage on your 4, so I kind of feel like that's a given. Some base skill power, some duration, some HP, all these things are great. The one that I've been rocking is skill crit damage, non-attribute skill power, and some range, because I don't put range on this build anywhere else. So for me, slotting one like this is a really good deal. What should you prioritize? I think range and skill power, if you don't want to put a little extra into your 4 ability. If you do want some in your 4 ability, I would say range and crit damage would be the priority here. With ancestor mods, depending on what you roll, you can actually change a whole bunch of stuff. Like if you get an HP mod, maybe you drop an HP mod here. You get a lot of options. It's kind of hard to say for sure. That's kind of why I build these without ancestor mods being the focal point. Now, real quick, we are using the trigger mod Power Beyond. You're only using this for the skill power increase. It's only 15%. It's not massive. It's a really basic mod to slide in. I do want to point out the fact that Gley does have her own mod called Focus and Expansion. If you're not sure how this works, it's when you use her 2 ability, which is an HP absorption, which you do not have to use that side of it. If you're frenzied and you use your 2, it does an AoE damage. It's very awful damage, but it triggers this. What will happen is when you're attacking, and this does work with this build if you wanted to try it. I actually use it all the time. It's interesting, but it causes enemies in that range, which here is 12 meters, to take damage while you're attacking based off your missing HP. The problem is it's not an insane amount of damage. So in anything heavy content wise, Power Beyond is more worth it. But if you chose to use this in something easier with a lot of ads like 400 dungeons or Sigma sectors, I would slot this in. But you definitely normally want to use Power Beyond in the high-end dungeons for the skill power increase. All right, so looking at the weapon for the build, we're going to go with the melee sword Shadow. If you do not know what this is, it is a toxic-based impact round sword. It does revolve around additional hits, not crit hits, which does hurt for Gley because with Blood and Iron, she gets a little bit of extra melee crit damage. But we're not going to build into that, and it's perfectly fine. The mods themselves, you're going to use Exquisite Sword, Brawl, Toxic Edge, Faster Attack Speed, Sweep, Toxic Conductor, Increased Range. I would not use Grip Augmentation. Double-Edged Extension, Toxic Enhancement, and Slaughterer. This is going to give you a lot of range, a lot of damage, and a lot of additional hits. If you're not sure what additional hits are, it's like multi-hit, but for swords. I'm assuming it has a different word, so you can't cross the streams and get the benefit of multi-hit stats on swords with additional hit and then vice versa, but it's the same thing, and this is very much a additional hit based sword. If you're wondering what rolls you want on the Shadow, I went with melee attack, toxic attack, obviously, additional chance, just one additional chance, and then additional attack damage. What this will end up getting for us here is, let me find it, an additional attack chance of 125% and then additional attack damage of 400%. So our additional attacks are actually going to do more damage than our base attacks. And if you don't know how additional attack chance works, anything over 100%, which is guaranteed, is an additional chance. So you can, 25% of the time, you're going to be hitting enemies 3 times with one swipe. That's actually huge. So this is very much why additional attacks are so good. And then for your recalibration, I just went melee attack, toxic attack, additional attack damage, and additional attack chance. All these are really good slotted in here. Now for the tools of the build, we got like 2 major talking points here. First and foremost, I'm running a dimension non-attribute. This is for her 4 ability with non-attribute skill ratio and dimension skill power boost ratio. If you want, okay, you can run something like critical hit damage with duration. If you want a little bit extra duration on your 3, you can run dimension skill power boost ratio with crit damage to get the most out of your 4. You can run singular boost ratio with this mod. Like, you have a lot of freedom here. I didn't feel the need for cooldown here at all, so I would not recommend that. This is just what I use. You can also use a singular reactor with this setup and you still get some good damage out of it, build into your 3 a little bit more. You get a lot of leeway with this build, which is really nice because you don't have to have like that exact perfect. This is just what I use, and this is what I was happy with. For your components, I used the Manus Auxiliary Power. This is for your sword damage. This gives you extra melee attack, and as you deal damage with your normal ability, you get up to 10 stacks of the Knight's Willpower. This increases the range and the damage of your melee. It's a lot, like, and you're going to be swinging this through the whole dungeon. Like, I could not take this off. In a previous flame, you might have seen I was using Slayer. That's because I was testing something in the middle of the video and forgot to switch it off. But you do want Manus Auxiliary with this setup. It's honestly, I'm surprised I don't see more people using this. On my rolls, I do have MP recovery. You don't need that. That's the set I had. Gley does not have MP, so I would not worry about that. Same thing with the max shield. You want as much HP as possible, and then some defense rolls. I don't have that on here. For your cores, though, you do want max HP and defense across the board, especially if you are going to use something like Spear and Shield. All right, looking at the Arche board, you don't have a super large amount of freedom here, at least not in my opinion. You may notice there's no mutant cells. There's not really any that help out with melee damage here, so there's nothing worth shooting for. You are just going to build up and over. You want the melee weapon attack nodes, and then you want the multi-hit damage and multi-hit attack nodes, including this one. This right here is like 10% on its own, so this is like super important to build for. All right, for the inversion reinforcement for season 3, episode 3, we went with adrenaline surge for the movement speed. Then we are rocking instant acceleration protocol. This will give you some attack speed and attack damage when you do additional attacks, which is what you're going to be doing with Shadow the entire time. And then blade trajectory correction. This gives you weapon attack with your melee just for using it. So again, that's what you're going to be using for the majority of the time. So it's just free damage. There's no reason not to use this. In the gameplay you're seeing, I don't have any of these enabled just because I don't like building things that are reliant on stuff that's potentially temporary. But for season 3, episode 3, this is what I would run at these 3. If you don't want to use adrenaline surge, Arche circulation tactic is also really good for the extra cooldown. And if you don't want to do that, one of these gives you HP. Some final thoughts on the build that you should be aware of. This build works in solo and party play amazingly well. You're going to have a great time. It's a lot of fun, especially with Gley. You're not running around with a rocket just blinding yourself. It's a great build. Lots of fun. Cannot stress that enough. Where I do not like this at all, though, is in some easier content. It's like the build's too strong to justify the speed of it. So like in Sigma sectors, 400 dungeons, 250 dungeons and below, none of that stuff is very fun with this build. You're going to be playing catch up the whole time, especially in party play, when there's other descendants that are drastically more efficient in those. But with the scaling of the new content, this is an amazing build. And as long as you shoot for that 20,000 HP, you're not going to have a lot of survivability issues, and you're going to have a lot of fun. I cannot stress enough how fun I think this build was for me with gameplay and showing and just having fun with the content that we currently have. With all that being said, without further ado, I do hope you guys enjoy the build. If you do, feel free commenting below, liking the video, and subscribing to the channel to help support the growth. I do plan on diving into Harris here soon, seeing what I can do with her, especially with the new content, seeing how much fun and efficient we can make her. I do hope that you all enjoy the rest of season 3, episode 3, and the content in the future, and have a great rest of your day.